the will of the American people is going to prevail today. Here in America, the cost of living is way too high. Donald Trump and Republicans promised that they were going to lower costs on day one. But costs aren't going down, costs are going up. The Trump tariffs are making life more expensive for everyday Americans by thousands of dollars per year. Inflation on the way up. Grocery costs, way up. Housing costs, way up. Child care costs, way up. Electricity prices through the roof, and the American people know it. That Donald Trump and Republicans have failed to make their life more affordable. And now in the midst of this 35-day Trump-Republican shutdown, Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which is going to result in tens of millions of Americans experiencing dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles. In some cases, everyday Americans, working-class Americans, and middle-class Americans are going to see their health insurance premiums increase by $1,000 or $2,000 per year because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Donald Trump and Republicans in the House and the Senate have failed the American people, and the American people know it. Democrats will continue to fight to lower the high cost of living, to fix our broken health care system, and to clean up corruption. In the Congress, in the courts, and certainly as it relates to Donald Trump and his administration, the most corrupt administration in American history. We want to reopen the government. We want to find a bipartisan path forward toward enacting a spending agreement that actually makes life better for the American people, that lowers costs for the American people, as opposed to the Trump economy where things are getting more expensive by the day. And of course, we have to decisively address the Republican health care crisis that is crushing the American people all across the land. Questions?
We hear there's a little bit of a falling next door in the Senate on this. We don't know what that means or what that would look like. But considering the exercise that Democrats in the House went through in March, how much skepticism would there be from House Democrats on any sort of an agreement that would come over from the Senate?
We said from the very beginning that we will evaluate in good faith any bipartisan agreement that emerges from the Senate, reopens the government, makes life better for the American people, and decisively addresses the Republican health care crisis. Until we see details, we're not in a position to do much more than that.
Are you more optimistic than you were at all now, based on what you're hearing from next door?
We're in the middle of a 35-day government shutdown. Donald Trump is unlawfully withholding billions of dollars in SNAP benefits from 42 million Americans and 16 million children. There's nothing to be optimistic about relative to the cruelty and the pain that Donald Trump and Republicans continue to inflict on the American people. There's nothing to be optimistic about when it comes to the fact that Donald Trump shut the government down. They're forcing hundreds of thousands of people to be out on furlough or to work without pay. They refuse to address the health care crisis that Republicans have created. In a year where they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing because of Republican policies all across America. The country is facing the possibility of a $536 billion cut to Medicare at the end of the year if Congress doesn't act. And Republicans are refusing to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits because they would rather gut the health care of the American people. There's nothing to be optimistic about because of what Trump and Republicans have done to this country. They've gone way too far, and the American people know it, and the results today are going to decisively reflect that fact.
Can I follow up on that? Just to put a finer point on that, you said in September, any agreement related to protecting the health care of the American people has to be ironclad and in legislation. It does not sound like whatever agreement comes out of the Senate will be in legislation. Will you accept something that is a handshake deal?
It's the same answer that I just gave.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I know that the filibuster is a Senate mechanism, but President Trump has repeatedly, as recently as this morning, called for Senate Republicans to abolish the filibuster, pass the CR with a simple majority, and also a host of other Republican priorities. You've criticized him for not inviting the legislative leaders to the White House to negotiate. What are your thoughts about him continuing to call for the abolishment of the filibuster within the context of his unwillingness to negotiate? Does that indicate to you that he has no interest in sitting down with not only his legislative leaders, but you and Leader Schumer?
Well, Donald Trump has taken a my way or the highway approach to his presidency from the very beginning, and he's used to Republicans simply bending the knee to him. Because these Republicans on Capitol Hill, on the House side and on the Senate side, they don't work for the American people. They work for Donald Trump. And so he's going to continue to make his position clear until they eventually cave, which is what they always do. Because Republicans in this Congress have been nothing more than a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda. And Donald Trump keeps making the point that Republicans have shut the government down, and they're the only ones that have the power to open it up. Republicans who have complete control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Republicans who are the ones who passed the one big ugly bill without a single Democratic vote. We strongly oppose their one big ugly bill. They passed it on their own because they have complete control of government. And in that one big ugly bill, they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripping health insurance away from 14 million Americans. And at the same time, they cut $186 billion from SNAP. That's the largest cut to nutritional assistance in this country's history. They literally, in July, ripped food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. And all of this was done so that Republicans could provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors in their one big ugly bill. And they did it on their own, my way or the highway, in terms of jamming extreme Republican ideology down the throats of the American people. And so Donald Trump expects to see more of the same from the puppets that are Republicans in the House and the Senate.
You said that Republicans always cave. Leader Thune said that the votes aren't there to abolish the filibuster. Are you saying that ultimately Donald Trump's request or demand will win out?
If history is any indication, ultimately compliant Republicans in the Senate are going to cave to the demands of their puppet master, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. This election cycle, Republicans have relied heavily on cultural issues, particularly trans issues. If they lose in Virginia and in New Jersey, what does that say to you about Republicans' reliance and dependence on communicating and messaging on trans issues against Democrats?
At this point, it's not a question of if Republicans are going to lose. I was in Virginia earlier today. I was in New Jersey over the weekend. I was in California a few weeks ago. They are going to lose because the American people know that Republican policies have failed them. And it starts with the economy, that Republicans promised to lower the high cost of living. But costs aren't going down in America. Costs are going up. The cost of living in this country is out of control. And Donald Trump has not done a damn thing to change it. And in the midst of this 35-day government shutdown, has spent multiple weekends on the golf course, holding let-them-eat-cake type of parties at his luxury resort in South Florida, found $40 billion to bail out a right-wing wannabe dictator in Argentina, and yet Donald Trump can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits or provide nutritional assistance to hungry children in America to ensure that they can put food on the table. The American people are smart. They see all of this happening in real time. And of course, what Republicans always do is try to distract the American people, as they've done in New Jersey and Virginia, and it will not be successful. It's over for these people. And we're going to see it today, and we're going to see it during the midterm elections next November.
At this point, is a record-breaking shutdown a pattern of the Trump administration?
It was a 35-day government shutdown during the first Trump administration. This is day 35 of the Trump Republican shutdown. Donald Trump and the Republicans cannot govern. These people are deeply unqualified. And they spent all of last year lying to the American people that they were going to lower the high cost of living, while at the same time distancing themselves from Project 2025. But they've spent all of this year doing nothing to lower the high cost of living. In fact, costs are going up, not down, while they spend all of their time, Republicans spend all of their time implementing the extreme, toxic Project 2025 agenda, including, by the way, as part of Project 2025, ripping away nutritional benefits and SNAP from the American people. I think that's on page 300 or so of Project 2025. Shutting down the federal government, agency by agency by agency, part of Project 2025. Gutting the health care of the American people, as Republicans have done all throughout this year, part of Project 2025. And so the dysfunction, the cruelty, the inability of Republicans to make life better for the American people is, of course, now on full display. And Republicans can't blame anyone other than themselves, because they have complete control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Thank you. Thank you so much. On Sunday, you said in an interview that you did not agree that Zohran Mamdani was the future of the Democrat Party. I'm just wondering, do you believe that a Democrat Party embrace of socialism would hurt the party's chance next November? And will there be a Democrat pivot away from Mamdani and more towards the center following today's election?
What I made clear is that given the existential nature of Donald Trump, his policies, his cruelty, his failures, the assault on the economy, the assault on health care, the assault on veterans, the assault on farmers, the assault on nutritional assistance, the assault on law-abiding immigrant communities, the assault on the American way of life, the assault on voting rights, the assault on the rule of law, and Donald Trump and Republican assault on democracy itself, that the most significant thing that can be done is for Democrats to take back control of the House of Representatives next year, so we can end this national nightmare and begin the process of marching toward a more perfect union. That's why these elections are going to matter. The midterms will matter. House Democrats will matter in terms of getting this situation turned around. And that's not pillow talk, that's real talk.
Yeah, Rep. Swazi and Gottheimer are working on a bipartisan ACA plan with income caps, things like that. Is that something that you support or encourage at all?
I think the conversation that has been led by Tom Swazi is being done in good faith and is all part of an effort to address the Republican health care crisis and to find a bipartisan path forward. But at the end of the day, it's been my view from the very beginning that traditional House Republicans aren't serious about doing anything meaningful, and they never have been. And so while I'm convinced that Tom Swazi, of course, is a common sense leader, and hopefully the Republicans who are communicating with him will get serious this time. But what we have seen over and over and over again, this happened during the course of the One Big Ugly Bill, they made claims about positions that they were going to take, like never cutting Medicaid, or protecting the clean energy tax credits, or not ripping nutritional assistance away from children. And then when these so-called traditional conservatives, these swing seat Republicans, were ordered by their boss, Donald Trump, to bend the knee and vote for the one big ugly bill, that's exactly what they did. And so I am hopeful that this time will be different. And Tom Suozzi is a great leader and has articulated principles that are designed to try to find a bipartisan path forward in addressing the Republican health care crisis, particularly as it relates to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But it seems to me more likely that if there's a bipartisan agreement to emerge, it will emerge from the Senate, not the House.
Leader Jeffries, have the ICE agents who put hands on LaMonica McIver been identified to you? You would vow to have their names.
They have not been identified to me yet. As part of the court case, it's our expectation that they will. Thanks.
I have a question about California's Proposition 50. I mean, it appears poised to pass pretty comfortably today, and as that momentum has been building the past few weeks, we've seen Democratic efforts in other states reemerge to redistrict, like in Virginia. Has the positive response in California to that effort influenced kind of the efforts of Democrats across the country to go back at, you know, some of these?
We've been clear from the very beginning. I said it months ago, that Democrats would not let Donald Trump and Republicans gerrymander the national congressional map as part of their effort to rig the midterm election. We said it months ago. And that California would be the beginning, but that there would be a decisive Democratic response throughout America, from coast to coast, and at all points in between. And now the American people can see that we absolutely are determined and committed to a continuing response that is decisive, that is immediate, that is forceful, and that is designed to ensure that there are free and fair elections in this country when it comes to deciding which party should control Congress in 2026. Democrats will not unilaterally disarm. Democrats recognize the moment that we're in, that the pushback will continue to be ongoing and forceful, and we will not allow Donald Trump and his Republican sycophants to undermine a free and fair national congressional map as part of his toxic effort to rig the midterm elections. If I said it, I meant it.
So
Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Just back on ACA subsidies, do you believe that you would be able to keep your caucus together on a deal, a bipartisan deal from the Senate on ACA subsidies, if it does not include the permanent extensions that you originally advocated for?
As I've indicated, we are going to evaluate whatever is presented from the Senate if it emerges in good faith and in a bipartisan way, as long as it addresses the Affordable Care Act tax credit issue in some way, shape, or form. We are in open enrollment right now. Tens of millions of Americans are about to experience their premiums, copays, and deductibles skyrocket. It requires action. And what is clear is that Republicans increasingly understand that. Marjorie Taylor Greene for weeks has made that clear. 13 Republicans in the House wrote to Mike Johnson, the Deputy Speaker of the House, because apparently, according to Donald Trump, he's the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And they said that something needs to happen on the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And now we're seeing movement in the Senate, because apparently Senate Republicans recognize that something needs to happen as it relates to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credit. So we'll evaluate any agreement if an agreement is presented to us as a caucus, but not before that.
Assuming that there is a bipartisan agreement in the Senate done in good faith, do you believe that House Speaker Mike Johnson would be able to deliver that on his end in good faith in the House?
I think that depends on, whether Donald Trump orders him to do it or not.
Thank you, Leader. So, Congressman Chuy Garcia appears to be retiring, and it also appears that he waited up until the filing deadline to make this decision, thus paving the way for his chief of staff to have an uncontested primary. This is being called a machine tactic by some people in your own party. Do you have an issue with how this was done?
I haven't had a conversation to evaluate the process that was utilized or to talk to Representative Garcia, so I'm not going to comment on it until I talk to him directly.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Multiple of your Democratic colleagues have said that they gave their October paycheck to charity or they deferred it completely. And last time you were asked this, you said you would make a decision over last weekend. So I just want to ask you again, what did you decide to do with your paycheck from October?
Did you not see that I answered that question, or are you just asking me to reiterate my answer? Because I did publicly make clear on Friday to my constituents and publicly that my paycheck has been withheld.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Leader. Secretary Duffy said today that this shutdown drags into next week. There's a possibility that the FAA could be closing parts of U.S. airspace because of a lack of controllers, and then just in the last hour or so, there's a ground stop at Reagan National because of a security threat. How could major aviation issues affect your calculus or anyone's calculus up here when it comes to the shutdown?
Well, Duffy needs to start acting like a transportation secretary and stop trying to pretend to be a reality show TV star. Because at the end of the day, it's the Republicans who shut the government down. Donald Trump repeatedly has made that clear. They're the ones who have the power to reopen it. And as Democrats, we've said, this Trump-Republican shutdown is causing great harm and pain to the American people, and it does threaten aviation safety. But Donald Trump has spent more time over the last 35 days talking to Hamas and the Chinese Communist Party than he has talking to Democrats on Capitol Hill to reopen the government, Democrats on Capitol Hill who represent half the country. And we continue to be clear. We will sit down with our Republican colleagues anytime, any place, in order to reopen the government, protect the American people, find a bipartisan path forward, and decisively address the Republican health care crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I just wanted to ask, when is the last time you spoke to Speaker Johnson about the current shutdown situation? And has the shutdown impacted your relationship with him at all? Do you still have that kind of forward-looking relationship that you've said you've had in the past?
We had a brief conversation last week. Thank you, everyone.